Hello, my name is Zachary Giglio, and I am in a group with William Lynn, Zachary Millis, Mahogany Christopher, and Zoe Abbey. And this semester, we worked with AW Italian, which is my family's company, and consulted them and advised on certain challenges that they're having with the business. I'm going to give a little bit of a company overview to start, and then we'll get into some of the challenges that we're having. So, AW Italian was started in 1965 by my grandfather, Arnold Wenzel, and it started off as a car dealership, and then he soon realized that he could get into the actual auto parts side of things, and he had relationships with people in Italy where he was born and raised. And he decided to capitalize on that opportunity for the local market, and it's grown over the past 58 years to now selling to different companies in the US and in Canada. And so they're an Italian auto parts importer, wholesaler, and retailer. We're based in New Jersey. We have a 7,500 square foot warehouse and office space that we utilize. And currently, my mother and I run the business. And my father also owns half the business, but he is not active in the daily, entanglements. So the brands that we deal with are Ferrari, Maserati, Alfa Romeo, and Lamborghini. Moving on. So this is just a little picture of the ownership. That is my father to my left, or my right, I guess. My grandmother to my left, and then my mother all the way to the left. So my grandmother was married to my grandfather Arnold. That's where AW came from, the name. And she had worked there for, I think, 45 years. And then my mother took over in the 90s and completely started to run the entire company in 2012 when my grandfather passed away. So moving on. These are three challenges that we have identified as being major challenges in the business, as along with we've spoken with my mother and father and different employees, and they've also identified these problems. So these are the ones we narrowed it down to as the most pressing issues currently, and things that have to do with it being a family business and things that we think that we can help with. So number one, there's currently no succession plan. My mother wants to retire soon, but there's no succession plan, so we're gonna have to figure that out. Number two, the ownership is disagreeing, meaning my mother and my father, on how profits should be used. So there's profits at the end of the year, and one person thinks that they should cash out, one person thinks that it should be reinvested into the business. So there's been a lot of debate over that. Number three, there's been family problems due to 24-hour community or 24/7 business communication. So when you live with the people that you work with, you talk about business nonstop, and it's been causing a little bit of family problems just because the only thing we talk about as a family is the business. So here's two funny little pictures of my mother and I from last summer, and we're very, very close, and I want to be able to take over the business soon, and she wants to retire soon. So it works out very well, but we don't have a specific plan in place for me taking over the business as far as equity, as far as gaining shares, as far as responsibilities being handed down. And it's a complex business. There's a lot of moving parts, and my mother's been running it for upwards of 30 years now. So she, or 20, 25 years now. So she really just knows the business well, and she wants to hand off the responsibilities to me, but in a way that I will gain not only experience, but equity in the business, and I won't just be handed things. So putting a succession plan in place is something that we're really looking to do. Now, William's going to be talking about how we've had some disagreements with how to distribute the profits and what to do with them. Take it away, Will.
Thank you for that, Zach. So another challenge I want to touch on today is the disagreements regarding profits. So AW Italian has been a family business, family-run business for forever, and of course there's a lot of family in the business. And so about 10 years ago, they were kind of at a standstill. There was tips in the family whether to reinvest the profits or whether to distribute the profits to shareholders. And they were in kind of a stagnant point of business at that point. And what I mean by that is they had found themselves in a market that was evolving into more of an e-commerce trade market, doing predominantly online sales. And without the reinvestment of those profits they had made that year, they were going to continue in that stagnant period. And so Zach's parents took this opportunity to kind of do a sales share situation. So they approached the other family members and asked about a buyout situation and gave them a nice package for a buyout. And then When that went through, they kind of did an internal restructuring. This allowed them to do upgrades such as e-commerce and really expanding them into a market that they had kind of not touched on before. And without this restructuring and sale of shares, yes, while it's hard to cut ties with family, overall, this is what was good for the business and has provided them financial stability in the years after.
Hey everybody, my name is Zoe, and today I'll be talking about a challenge recently that AW Italian has been facing. One challenge that AW Italian has consistently faced is that some family members have difficulty maintaining a positive work-life balance or just knowing when to separate the two. Since almost all members of the company are also family members, it can be very difficult to navigate the ideal work-life balance, especially considering how dominating AW Italian is during their everyday lives. In some family businesses, such as AW Italian, the executives actually live together, so constant communication about the business is present and obvious, which can and has created conflicts in their personal lives. For example, the owner Stacy even brought up in a meeting one time that she was annoyed by her husband and son constantly speaking about the business while they were on a family vacation together. The business has consumed almost all aspects of their lives, which Stacy, one of the partial owners, has been trying to minimize to a degree. Communication about the business is obviously necessary at times, but should not dominate all discussions all the time. Thank you. Now I'm going to hand it over to Zach.
So now we're going to talk about some solutions that we have to the problems and challenges. There are 2 solutions per problem. So the first being this succession plan with Zachary, positioning the company for a liquidity event, creating voting/consensus guidelines for major decisions, having one owner buy more shares from the owner so that one has a controlling share, restrict the business discussions to work hours, and plan times throughout the week to talk. Now, to address the issue of not having a succession plan, our idea is just to introduce and create a succession plan. So we want to be able to transfer the equity and the responsibilities over from my mother over to myself. And the way that we see about going about that is by me proving myself, by increasing the revenue. And as the revenue increases a certain amount, I will gain a certain percent of equity. So for example, if I increase the revenue in the next 3, 4, 5 years by, I double it, then I will gain 10% equity. And then as I double it again, I'll get another 10% equity. The specific percentages will have to be worked out between management and myself and amongst management. But I think that is the best way to transfer equity, is as I gain more responsibility and gain the trust of not only my parents, and ownership, but of the employees who work there that I will be presiding over. I will gain more equity and I'll have to prove myself, because if you don't earn something, then you won't really value it. And I think that would be the best way for me to actually put the health and the vitality of the company in the forefront of my mind and not just my own best self-interest.
Thanks again, Zach. Another solution we found would be position the company for a liquidity event. What this means is our first option would be liquidity through acquisition. And so at this point, we're looking for other auto parts manufacturers or auto parts wholesalers to come in and buy AW Italian outright. But what the family wants to do is go through sort of an interview process to ensure that the buyer holds the same values that the family has since the opening of the company, as it is a generational family business. And we don't want those values really lost in the new era that it's going to be. And of course, this means financial transparency, getting all of the bank statements in order, making sure all the liens that are on the company, if there are any, are transparent to the buyer and or paid. Another way to do this would be, if we don't see the acquisition from another company going the way we want it, would be to open to a private equity market, meaning these private equity firms would come in and buy about 70 to 80% of the business. So have a majority stake, but would be completely funded by that firm. So what this says is, yes, the Giglio family can still work for the company, but they have very little cash value in that company as a whole. And so this gives them the opportunity to kind of see what they want to do, if they would rather sell the company outright or stay on have little financial responsibility with the company and kind of continue it to the next era, but not being the sole shareholder of the company.
So now we will talk about the creation of voting and consensus guidelines for major decisions within the company. So we feel like without this, there is a difficulty coming to an agreement on several challenges occurring within the business due to opposing viewpoints and personal opinions from each person within the business having different ideas of where the direction of the business should be headed. We think that this would allow management and ownership to vote on each issue and only move forward when there's a consensus or a agreement on like the majority of the people agree with them. This would help to promote fairness and transparency within the company. We feel like this would help people in decision making because we feel like they would all have an equal say in what they where their company is headed and their input is being taken into consideration. So now we would talk about how having one owner buy more shares from the other, that way they can have the controlling share, so they have over 50% or just a little bit over 50% of the company. So they have technically the legal ownership of the company. So it has become apparent through our interviews with the ownership that there's difficulty coming into agreements. If they had one more owner buy more of the shares, and this wouldn't be as hard of an agreement. This would allow management and ownership to vote on each issue and only move forward when there is a majority agreement. By adopting a more democratic decision-making process, it would allow management and ownership to vote on each issue and only move forward when there is an agreement on it. We feel like this would make sure that they all have an equal say, and this would help to promote fairness and transparency again. Voting like this has been around for a very long time and is common in business practices. This is why we feel like this is a viable option. And now we will move on to Mahogany.
So what we're looking to do is restrict business discussions to work hours. With the solution, work hours and non-work hours would be essentially split so that conversations and duties about the business are strictly had within the opening times of operation. For example, between the hours of 8 a.m. and say about 6 p.m. is when the company is operating. So this is when the family would speak strictly about what they are be doing, any questions, comments, concerns, updates, things like that as it pertains to the business. Before and after hours of operation, the family members would not be allowed to bring up any work-related matters to each other. This would then allow for the family to have both efficient work days while being able to later enjoy the family time, quality time, without having interruptions of business concerns or business matters. This results in a work-life balance. Also, an enjoyable and stress-free family time. Another part of our solutions would be planning times throughout the week to talk. By scheduling certain times throughout the week, this will be more efficient for the family because by having scheduled meetings, this controls and maximizes or minimizes the conversations that are had within both beneficial for not only the family, but the scheduled time that they do have at work. So this would be beneficial for the overall workflow. Instead of having maybe 20, say, short conversations here and there, whether it be throughout personal time or during the business hours, the owners and the management would schedule 1 or 2 blocks throughout the week or throughout a day or so, where they would sit down and discuss all important topics that need to be talked over or ran through, so that way everybody's on the same page. This gives everyone time to make note of any questions, comments, concerns, and all other parties will be notified as any changes are made, updates, and ensures that everybody's on the same page. This would also allow for more implementation throughout the week so that there aren't longer stretches of progress that are being made. So that way everything in the workflow comes together, which overall helps the team development.
On behalf of our group and AW Italian, we appreciate you coming out to listen to us today. And we hope that you took a little bit of something from the presentation, and we took a lot from this class and a lot from this assignment. So we hope that you learned just as much as we did.